Man, what a mess this weekend, huh? Holy man.
Solana, crypto, right, man? Crypto, bro. Jesus Christ. What a
is this do we think this is an FTX level issue, I guess? Do you think that this has the type of fallout that FTX did? Obviously, customer funds weren't stolen, but basically the chain where 60 or 70% of trading volume happened is a little bit cooked. Chris, what do you think?
I honestly think people don't. I mean, we kind of all knew it was going. Obviously, the insider cabal stuff. Everybody knew that was happening. Maybe we didn't know the full extent, but everybody knew. But to have the kind of infrastructure guys on the infrastructure side taking part in the rugs, those guys are gonna have to get some justice there, unfortunately. That kind of shakes things up. I don't think, look, I mean, if a meme coin popped this morning, I don't know, if Kanye came on and was like, I'm putting out a meme coin, people would still go buy it, right? I mean, that's just what is happening on Solana. But yeah, this is a big kind of bummer for all our crypto, I guess.
Pretty crazy. First of all, happy birthday to Jake. You are the man. Happy birthday to the legend. Appreciate you, bro. The only difference between something like this and FTX is just like leverage. Luckily on chain is all spot, right? So you can feel that it got vacuumed out of the ecosystem. But there's not necessarily any bodies being carried out that haven't floated to the top already. And so that's a huge difference. And we already knew that, the numbers 200, 300, $400 million were sucked out within these launches. We just didn't know where it went technically. Now we know where it went. I mean, we didn't know how sinister it was. It's pretty gross. I've been talking for the last couple of weeks of how nasty this is and how you know, everyone's whole mindset is just that they need to get rich immediately. And that's like so far from what this industry began as. And so, you know, it's been pretty sick to watch and even like participate in a little bit, but just like, this isn't what we signed up for. Like, I know that you, Adam, Shannon, Eric, like this isn't what we signed up for. And it was just sad to see like the levels of greed in the ecosystem was like literally disgusting. So I don't know, in a way, you know, it was self-correcting. And I mean, you know, this tends to happen every couple of years in this industry. So this was a minor scale without a lot of leverage. And actually, I think it's pretty good to see it get cleansed. So hopefully some people learn some lessons.
I mean, the number of space, I was on a bunch of spaces over the weekend, and I think that was, I mean, obviously people like, oh, let's regulate and stuff. I was like, actually, this is the most self-correcting thing ever. Like, we instantly knew about it. You know, we instantly kind of know what's going on and stuff, and people can, you know, I mean, yes, people lose money, but dude, people lose money everywhere. This is like how quickly the market corrects and stuff. Not that these guys shouldn't, you know, get some charges thrown at them. They should, but
they should definitely go to jail. I think people will definitely go to jail here.
Yeah. I mean, I was joking with Jake offline before the show, but you know, if you guys remember Nate from OpenSea last cycle, this was a dude who literally, like, they would do a front page of OpenSea, like the NFT of the day kind of thing. And he was like in charge of that or knew about it and would literally just front run the NFT. So if it was the NFT of the day was going to be doodles, he'd go buy some doodles beforehand. Basically made like 20 or 30 grand. He got like a year in jail, right? Like they made an example out of him. I mean, these guys, they need to make an example out of this. This is it. Yeah, for the infrastructure providers, that level of trust, these guys need to do some time.
And they did the Spaces tour. Why does everyone in this industry
it's crazy,
confessing to every crime that they committed over the last couple of months?
Crazy.
Crazy. It's a lawyer's dream. They must just keep tabs on this industry nonstop. But it is what it is.
Yeah, but you guys did say it right that this does happen every few years, and you know, that chain just gets basically a social cleansing. Now, last cycle it was Ethereum. The cycle before that also Ethereum. And Bitcoin also got a social cleansing as well when the ordinal community came in. So it seems like now that's going to happen over to Solana. But this is a time now, you know, it's going to take some months probably for everyone to reset. Adam and I already talked about this, like our engagement across the board is down pretty bad. And that's usually a sign of the tourists leaving the ecosystem, builders getting back to developing, being able to focus. The crowds aren't as loud, so the team has, you know, more time to really focus in on what needs to be built. Also, to kind of identify what's missing. It's really hard to know in the industry, you know, what type of tools and products need to be built when the numbers are just continually going up hundreds of % per day. Obviously, it's great for everyone, but for the teams, it's really tough to know because most of the people just want the number to go up. And so you just try to do whatever it is to kind of please that crowd. So I'm excited. You know, it's been, you know, the Emblem team's been building pretty much every day for years on end, but you know, we get to go back to something that was maybe 6 to 8 months ago. We get a little bit of downtime and really focus. And, you know, it's actually a perfect conversation because Trent has been building in the space forever, you know, created the first NFT platform on Bitcoin, ascribed back in 2013, and then built Ocean Protocol in 2015, almost 10 years ahead of the AI space and crypto. And I've interviewed Trent individually before. I know Adam has as well. So Trent, man, it's awesome to reconnect with you, man. How have you been?
Hi there. Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for the kind words. Great to visit with you, Jake, and you, Adam, and stuff, and everyone else here. Should be a fun conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. For a lot of people that don't know, so Trent is, again, somebody who's just been ahead of the space for a while, and built Ascribe, which was the first NFT platform on Bitcoin in 2013. Then decided to pivot to AI in 2015, which was an AI decentralized data platform. But Trent, I'd love for you to kind of describe, you know, what is, you know, Ocean Protocol, but also to, you know, 10 years later now, the AI space is finally taking off, or at least gaining some traction in the crypto space. Is this something that you thought, well, obviously you were in AI, but did you think that AI agents would be kind of the breakout case for the crypto sector almost 10 years later from when you started?
Yeah, maybe I'll just give a background overall to recalibrate, because I was actually in AI, hacking on AI since the early 90s. So it'll probably help to calibrate. I tend to take a longer term perspective, and sometimes I have to be patient on things that I think are cool, but they end up, coming years later. And before I get to that too, you guys were at the beginning of this conversation, you were talking about the recent washout, I'm guessing with the Millet token and so on. I remember back in 2013, I believe, I lived in Berlin since that time. And I remember we were all super relieved when Mt. Gox finally imploded. And but we were really worried that the space would really completely crash and burn and nothing would come of it. So when it didn't, and Mt. Gox imploded, because it was like a moving train wreck, we all knew it was going to happen. So when it finally imploded, it was a sigh of relief. And the same thing happened again with the DAO, right? Everyone knew about the security flaws, like Vlad and others, where we're talking about it a lot. So when it finally happened, it's like, thank goodness it finally happened, right? And then we can move on. So to be honest, as a builder, I haven't been distracted by any of that. We kind of are so used to seeing extreme ups and downs and stuff that we always have our heads down, maybe for better and for worse, but yeah. So in terms of background and stuff, right? I like to say I was raised on a pig farm and then became an AI researcher, and that's actually true, with a few steps in between. But I studied electrical engineering and computer science in Saskatchewan. I'd been growing up hacking on computers and all that. And then straight out of that, I started a company, started work on it in 1998. And actually, 97, 98, I worked for National Defense doing AI for the radar systems, classification and more. And back then, there was, AI was in academia a lot. There was, I don't know, at least 1,000 AI researchers out there. You could count the number of companies that were officially AI on two hands, right? There was less than 10 that were obviously directly AI. Things like the Prediction Code doing stock market trading to the early 90s. And a few other consulting shops. Basically, there wasn't a lot, right? And some hedge funds were doing it too, but it wasn't publicly widely known yet, right? So it's not very much an industry at all. But there had still been research on AI and people trying to use it for various things, going back to the 50s, of course, right? And there had been a wave of companies doing AI in the 80s, but they were doing expert systems. It was too brittle. So it was a big bubble and they all lost money. So AI was a dirty word starting in about 1990 again, right? And so AI has gone through many winters. In crypto, we have our boom and bust cycle every 4 years typically. In AI, it tends to be on the measure of decades. So there was an AI winter in the 70s. There was another AI winter in the 90s. And then that winter started to thaw starting in about 2013, 2015 or so. But actually, I always thought it was cool ever since I was a kid. So my first two companies were AI, and then I went to crypto blockchain. Did non-AI for a while and then combined the two. So my first company was in 1998. I started working on it while still in undergrad, and it was AI for creative design of analog circuits. And we created a company for that, and we raised VC money. We were in the middle of nowhere, Canada, but we still got money from Silicon Valley, from Intel, from Synopsys, leading industry names. And with that, we built the product, went through some pivots, went through ups and downs. Tried to raise money for our Series B in 2001 after the .com implosion. That wasn't fun, but we managed to get out of it and get ourselves acquired. So in early 2004. So that was a nice feather in my hat, and we built cool stuff. It was really fun to do. On the heels of that, I started two things at the same time. I started a second company doing AI for verification of analog circuits as well as custom digital and memory circuits. So the first company was really about design, the second about verification. And we started that in 2004 and built it up, and eventually got acquired by Siemens in 2017. I've been away for a few years from it by that time. I stepped out in 2013, 2014 era as I was starting to jump into crypto, and we were profitable, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that second company, I'm pretty happy with that. People talk about AI for designing computer chips as if it's a new thing now. I even saw a tweet this morning about Jeff Dean talking about that. And full respect to Jeff, but people have been using AI for computer chip design since since at least the 1980s when Kirkpatrick used it and he developed simulated annealing for that and more. And there's this whole industry for chip design called EDA, electronic design automation. And it's like a $15 billion industry, $20 billion industry. And it's a necessary component of any chip design itself, right? If you're a chip company like a Qualcomm or an Apple, you're going to be using the software that this industry develops. And under the hood, it's full on AI and has been for a long, long time. It hadn't really hit the analog space yet or custom digital space, and that's where I found my niche and got strong with my two startups. I mentioned that in 2004, I started 2 new projects. One was this company. Also, at the same time, I did a PhD in parallel out of Belgium. Once again, going back to design of analog circuits. And, we've seen hallucinations and so on in LLM land. And so on, where it basically you ask for something and it gives you something crazy, right? Well, this was certainly a problem where we were asking the software to give us analog circuits that might have a certain gain and a certain power consumption and so on, and it would end up basically figuring out ways to cheat the circuit simulator and give an answer that the simulator thought was good, but was actually obviously garbage. So we would iterate back and forth trying to add more constraints, just sort of like playing with text prompts, if you will. And in the end, it was actually really, really hard to solve that way directly. So we found a different approach, which was correct by construction, where we could constrain what the analog circuit would do by sort of reformulating. Sort of like these days, you look at the different approaches that the large LLM teams have. You could say optimize for curiosity, like Grok does, and that seems to do better. Or learn against just math and coding, versus if you sort of learn off the internet and then try to tune it to be nice afterwards, like the OpenAI stuff seems to be a harder way to solve it, right? Anyway, that's a bit of a digression, but so I saw creative AI since the late 90s, basically, and via 2 companies. Jumped into blockchain in 2013 because I'm a big nerd. I follow all these big tech trends, whether it's AI or brain-computer interfaces or virtual reality or otherwise, and get excited about all of them and talk my wife's ear off and all this too. And in 2013, my wife and I had, I've been talking my wife's ear off about blockchain, and even before that, myself and friends had hung out, talked about it, bought some Bitcoin, whatever. And we asked that there was an interesting problem in the world of art. She's a professional curator, which was, how do you collect digital art? And then we kind of realized, well, what if you could own digital art the way that you own Bitcoin? And that turned out to be a really great question to ask. And that's what led to Ascribe, this NFT platform, 2013, 2014, 2015 era. We were too early. We didn't tune well enough towards, making it really easy to buy and sell. We had like 10,000 users, all that. We're pretty proud of what we built. But it wasn't quite there yet. And it turns out that when NFTs took off, it was really when there was enough people that were crypto rich to buy it natively, rather than, we had iterated with traditional galleries and collectors and stuff. So, and we saw the writing on the wall, so we pivoted, briefly doing databases in 2015, 2016, something called BigChainDB. And, but I was really missing AI. AI is super cool. I've always thought it was cool, clearly very impactful. And that's obvious to anyone who starts looking at AI at all, that AI is going to have a big impact on humanity. And started writing about it in 2016 in big ways, things like a series of articles on AI DAOs, which these days, is basically synonymous with agents. So I was talking about, AI millionaires and stuff in these articles and so on in 2016, as well as starting to ask, how can blockchain help AI? Wrote an article on that as well. And all roads pointed to the sort of highest leverage thing we could do was use blockchain to help AI researchers get their hands on more data. And for that, then it comes down to doing a decentralized data exchange. And so we started doing a prototype on that in late 2016, early 2017 with BigChainDB, the database project. And that morphed into creating Ocean Protocol, which, at the heart is decentralized data exchange. To do a good job on that, we actually had to solve the problem of access control. So think of it like when you're in Google Drive. If you right click and click, you can say share a folder or a file to someone with their email address, right? But of course, you have a middleman there, Google in this case, and they can kind of see everything, right? Or they can say they're not being evil, but they even stopped saying that, right? So basically, when they enter China. So overall, imagine if you could have access control where you don't have a middleman, and it's instead mediated with decentralized technology, blockchain, et cetera. And that's what we set out to build in Ocean, and that's what we built. And that unlocks doing a decentralized data market on top. Think of it like an NFT market, but for data, right? For training data for AIs, but it can also be very general. It can be for, music videos, whatever you want. We really focused on AI though. And so we built that with Ocean. And at first, it was all pretty custom, but then we said, okay, what about wallets for data? What about exchanges for data, like DEX style with AMMs and all that? And we realized it could be a mountain of work unless we did another tweak, which was let's tokenize the data. So we released our V3, which tokenized the data. So when you launch, when you publish a data asset, a CSV file of say DNA, or maybe a file stored online in Amazon S3 or in Filecoin or whatever, that's an NFT. You publish that, it becomes an NFT, and then that can be shared to many people as ERC20 fungible tokens. So if you want to have 100 different licenses to 100 different people, then you would specify that this thing has 100 fungible tokens, and then each person would get its own license when they get it. And so it looks and feels like, if you're using, say, OpenSea or something like that, this predates OpenSea in those, especially because a lot of the ideas we actually took from Ascribe NFT days too, and had the legals around it too with copyright management, all that. But it's really tuned for data, the NFT for claiming the copyright, and then the ERC20 for the different licensing. And you can have different licenses against the same NFT. So by comparison, let's just use, for those of you in the space who don't really know IP law so well, a simple example is, let's say I'm, the band AC/DC, and we just released a new album. We just released Back in Black, right? One of the greatest albums ever. And we just released it. So we have the copyright for it. We recorded the master tapes, and we've given, we handed over the rights to, I forget, let's say Universal Music, right? So they've got the master tape. And it's an exclusive one-way license to Universal, and then Universal themselves is manufacturing tapes and vinyl and CDs, etc. And each CD, for example, has its own license to be able to listen to the music. But with a CD, you don't have the license to play that publicly. If you're a radio station, you can get the license to Back in Black, the whole album, or maybe one song, and that's a different license to play publicly, etc. Right? So, that's how it is. So the NFT, the non-fungible ERC721, that's like the master tape. And then every single CD, all the CDs together, that would be an ERC20 token contract. And then a single CD would be 1.0 ERC20 tokens. So that's the mapping of what it looks like. It's really a one-to-one mapping of what goes on in the IP world, what you can have for music or for data or otherwise, right? And all IP, this is all copyright IP, it's all traded basically the same this way. So that's what we've built in Ocean. We've put in affordances for privacy where you can bring compute to the data. We made it where it was really easy to launch your own token. So, Pump.fun and all those took off like crazy, where you could really easily launch your own meme token, but there was no utility below. Well, in 2020, when we launched V3, we also launched where you launch an AMM with your token, and people can speculate on the token, buy and sell and so on. And in fact, it took off, it blew up. We had like $50 million volume in the first 3 weeks or so. To be honest, we didn't quite like that at first, because we saw, we were a serious project and we didn't like the speculation. But then friends of mine pointed out, Trent, this is really good because it's automatically setting the price, which is exactly what you did this for. And I'm like, you're right. So we got over it. We got off of our ivory tower, if you will, and we realized speculation is good because it helps to establish the market. And of course, so you want fairness in the end, et cetera. And so we released our V4, which tuned things to be a bit more fair, et cetera. And since then, it's been a few years even since we released that. We're in 2025 now. Since we built and released those, we've been pursuing use cases around it, tuning things more and more, as well as high-level use cases. So one of my main projects is Ocean Predictor, which is crowdsourced time series prediction. So it uses Ocean under the hood, but then we embraced things like realizing speculation and finance, DeFi, is actually a really great first broad use case for crypto. So we shouldn't shy away from it. So in this crowdsourced time series prediction, the very first sub-use case of that is for crypto pricing. Will Bitcoin price, Bitcoin USDT pair on Binance go up or down 5 minutes from now, yes or no? And people can bet on that. They speculate. They can basically stake on that, making a prediction yes or no. And if they're right, they make money. If they're wrong, they lose money. But we make that where it's obfuscated, so you can't buy the overall signal. You can't see the overall signal for free, but you can buy it. And then this is really useful for traders. It's alpha for traders. And the accuracy of this is between 51 and 55%, depending on the token. So people buy this, and then they use that as part of their overall trading systems, right? For 5 minutes ahead and 1 hour ahead. So that's probably a fire hose of information for everyone, but we got through end to end from the beginning of my career to the now. And I guess one final cherry, we're also working on brain-computer interfaces as another project in Ocean besides the prediction. So there we go. I'll stop.
Yeah, I have it here pulled up on the live stream, the predictor. So Bitcoin has an accuracy of 54% over the course of 4 weeks. I think where the lowest ended one is Tron USDT is 48.8%. So I don't know if you're a betting person, 54% is like insane. I actually live out in Las Vegas, and the best handicappers in the city have a win rate of about 54 to 56%. So you're literally, in the terms of if you're a Vegas sports bettor, you'd literally, or that prediction would be, one of the elites, just to kind of show what's going on here. It's kind of interesting too that you can sell the signal. So then, from the customer base that comes to Ocean Protocol, we'll step back to just Ocean Protocol, from a general perspective, not from Predictor. Are you getting is this like individual kind of researchers coming in? Is it wholesale protocols coming in and looking for a specific type of data, which then they leverage into their protocol? Or is it generally kind of a mix, because it's still early stages now of people trying to figure out how to plug and play this different types of data for their AI project?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, when we launched Ocean, and especially when we had sort of built the initial dream of Ocean, which was our V3, including the data marketplace and the AMMs, automatic pricing tokens, etc., tokenized all of that. That was at first, we launched it as a marketplace for everyone to see and to try, kick the tires, and so on. We had a couple hundred projects build on it, try different things, and there's probably about 10 of those still around. It's really tough, to be blunt, to come up with something that closes the loop of creating value. We call it the data value creation loop. So, from the time that you buy data, raw data or otherwise, to the time you make money from it, what does that look like in between? And usually the way to create money from data is with AI, actually. AI is the missing piece. So you go from raw data to training feature vectors, raw data to feature vectors to training the model, to getting the trained model, and then making predictions from that. And then from the predictions, you take action and make money. And with that, some of that money you make, you go and spend more money to buy more data, et cetera. So that's the loop. But it's really, really hard to go end to end on that in a general sense, because it's so different from one thing to the next. You could have data that's analytics of a number of people coming to your website. You can have data that's DNA training, DNA data for seeing and trying to connect that to what's the chance of someone getting breast cancer or something, right? Data comes in so many different shapes and sizes. And so it's really hard to have sort of an end-all solution that connects the dots end to end. So Ocean Marketplace, it was always intended as a demonstrator, and then for people to connect the dots on their own. And I think a lot of people, when they came in to use Ocean, they thought, okay, the dots are fully connected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really not. It's really a tool to help you claim copyright more easily, help you to monetize more easily, to sell your data, et cetera. And the teams that have tended to do the best are the ones that had this whole loop end to end, from the raw data to training the model to making predictions to getting value from that, right? And Predictor is by design a prime example of this end-to-end loop, right? From getting the raw data of historical crypto prices and more, to training a model against this, to then predicting up down, and then using that to trade against, right? So if you can make money trading, then you can take some of that money from trading to buy more data, et cetera, right? So that's the challenge that Ocean has had, I think, overall. So it's these use cases that have come along and that are in very specific ways, right? So there are some other teams doing neuroscience on Ocean, for example, and other use cases too. We've had Daimler working with Ocean for years. There are some use cases at the high level with governments. There's people using Ocean for decentralized Kaggle type data science competitions and more, right? But yeah, the challenge is that it's because of the way that data is, it's really hard to be batteries included across the board, right? If you have something like pump.fun where there's no promise of utility, then you've got batteries included because the utility is the memeing is the fun, that's it, right? But when you're actually trying to do something connecting the dots end to end on something that's general as data, then it's a different story. So
my question just goes with like data. It seems like to me, just explain it to me, like how, okay, I mean, I'm thinking of like, because I don't know, Reddit, right? Reddit has, in theory, great data that can train LLMs and that sort of thing. So I understand, okay, Reddit could sell this data to, OpenAI or these LLMs to train on. But isn't it like when you get like a layer down or multiple layers down where, okay, somebody puts together a great data set, isn't it kind of like the moment I sell it to somebody, then it's like not, then I don't own it, then it's like almost to the wind, isn't it? Almost like it's gone at that point. Like it's no longer mine because now it's been transferred to somebody else, and now it's just, what kind of is there nothing really stops that from happening, right? It's just kind of, you know what I'm saying? Is it like,
so this is a great question. Yeah, it comes down to, this is the concept of intellectual property, right? So let's say that I write a novel, right? And then I share it with you, and you like it, and you decide to publish it on your own, right? Well, I can come after you, and we can go to court, and I would probably win because I'd have all this proof of me writing the novel over half a year or 2 years, whatever, right? Or I'm AC/DC, right? Well, and I publish this, or maybe via Universal, I publish CDs. Other people can come along and rip those CDs. But if they start selling those CDs that they've ripped, they're gonna quickly find themselves in a courtroom and getting thrown in jail, right? Sure. And why is that? Because at the heart of things, there's legal protection around intellectual property, and in this case, this is copyright law, right? Copyright is a subset of intellectual property. There's also patents and trademarks. And so, in general, whenever I create something, as soon as I have put that thing to paper or I've recorded it to something physical, whether it's a magnetic drive or otherwise, I have copyright. I have copyright rights to that, right? And then when I'm selling it to others, they are getting a license to that. It might be an exclusive license, or maybe it's a license. There's different terms, right? And so owning something is really just a bundle of rights, no more, no less. In crypto land and a lot of other places, there's a lot of confusion around what ownership means, but it's really just a bundle of rights. So myself, when I create something, I have a bundle of rights, the original copyright, etc. If I'm Universal licensed, Back in Black from AC/DC, exclusive license, it's a very great bundle of rights, right? Because I have the right to resell, etc. All this. Etc. So in the case you gave example of data, let's say that I'm selling you, let's say that I'm Reddit, and I sell you all my data to use. You take it, you use it. Maybe I can't sell it. I sell a license to it for a certain use case. So let's say I license it to you for, maybe I sell it, $100,000, and you can use it for the next year for training your AI models. Great. And maybe I make it non-exclusive. Great. So I sell it to you, and I sell it to OpenAI, and I sell it to XAI, et cetera. Great. If OpenAI takes that and resells it, then I can take them to court, right? Et cetera, et cetera. So this works in a B2B context. It also works in music, okay, because there's a lot of infrastructure around that. And the music recording industry has been very aggressive in going after people who pirate, right? For better and for worse. To me, I like to see artists getting paid. I don't like that the middlemen take so much of the cut, but that's how it is. So, but if you're talking about, let's say, like consumer data, where it's less established, there's a less aggressive approach to policing people or going after people who don't license, what do? That's actually really hard, right? Yeah. Fortunately, what I was just talking about was legal protection, right? Copyright. There's another form of protection, which is technology protection, right? So make it where, if you're smart about it, you make it where people can't actually even see the data themselves. They never get their hands on it. So this wouldn't work for something like an NFT of an image, where it's literally you can right-click save, right? So if someone starts sharing that quietly among friends, you can't do anything about it. You still have the copyright. They can't easily resell, but they can still, have it as their screensaver, and no one's going to be able to come after them, right? But for what if you had, data? Let's say my DNA data, right, which is pretty sensitive. I don't want that in the wrong hands. Well, what can I do then to protect it besides the legal side? Well, technology-wise, I could make it where, imagine some AI algorithms can, written in scripts, let's say a neural network training algorithm, is run on my computer that has my DNA data, and it runs some statistics on that, actually. Like, I won't even use a neural network, just some simple statistics. It'll say, okay, I'm looking for gene number 3,472, where I know that's an indicator of whether or not Trent has a risk of Parkinson's, for example, right? Sergey Brin famously has that risk, right? And then it runs that analysis, pops that out to whoever I sold that data to, and then they can tell me, okay, yes or no, I have risk of Parkinson's, right? But guess what? That algorithm was run locally on my computer. No one else has seen it. So the physical bits storing that information of my DNA never ever left my premises, never left my hardware, right? So my data is still protected that way. From a technology sense, it's not only protected from a copyright sense, but it's also protected in a technology way. So the idea of the data never leaving a premises, it's something we call compute to data in Ocean. It's a privacy preserving technique. And we think it's pretty cool, right? You can do analytics on it, and you can also train models on it, right? Train model on one person's set of data, or maybe many, many sets of data, right? So in the Reddit case, it could be training, taking an AI model, maybe an existing AI model, having a copy of that living locally, where the AI model is then updated against the Reddit data as training data, and then passed back to the original owner and stuff, right? And if you train it across lots and lots and lots of different data silos, if you will, that's called federated learning, right? Google made a lot of that famous in about 2017 or so, but it predates that. Of course, when Google does federated learning, the last mile, the data silos get the data private, but Google is still, as a middleman, gets to see a lot more than they should, right? So they got pushback. They were trying to do federated learning in the UK on the UK health system about 5 years ago, and they got huge pushback and basically got kicked out of that because of the privacy concerns, the legitimate privacy concerns. But overall, imagine the middleman is fully decentralized thanks to a blockchain, right, where it's non-custodial, all that, doesn't see the data, et cetera. And this is really what Ocean technology does. So you can have the middleman being decentralized, trustless, et cetera, whatever you want to call it, and then the last mile as well, where the data stays on premise, whether you want to just do analytics or model training on just one person's premise, or in a federated learning sense, where it's across 10 or 100 different silos, federated learning or simply analytics, right? So that's a pretty powerful technique. And there's obviously other privacy preserving techniques too, things like trusted execution environments and more, that also have complementary ways to protect the data. And these are all, broadly speaking, technological ways to protect, the data. And intellectual property is a legal means, right? Ideally, you have both. You get the best of both worlds. Ideally, you don't have to just resort to one or the other. And that's our philosophy in Ocean too. We try to make it really easy to protect yourself in both ways. And it's sort of double protection, right? And then you get yourself, you monetize. So hopefully that answers your question. Overall, it helping basically people to monetize. One final thing that we've seen too is, if it's just the raw data, it's harder to monetize directly. It's the more data value add you can have to the data, of like feature vectors or cleaning it up or selling the model, the closer to the predictions you are, the more money you make. And therefore, predictions themselves are the most valuable form of data. So when OpenAI is selling data, they're a data vendor. They're selling predictions, right? People put in a query to the model and it spits out basically a prediction. It's trying to predict the next token or the next 100 tokens, if you will. And then from that prediction, people can take action readily, right? So they ramped their revenue very, very quickly. But of course, you can sell raw data. You can sell as training data or otherwise. You can sell feature vectors, et cetera. So all the way along, it's all data that can be sold. But the closer to prediction you are, the easier it is.
So if predictions are, the hottest, I guess, commodity in terms of data formation for AI agents, over the past few months, this idea of DeFi AI has really taken off. It's one of the emerging sectors kind of outside of, I guess, the infra and then the quote unquote agent space, where a lot of people, a lot of users, they just want an AI agent to be able to trade on chain for them and to kind of, hey, give this AI agent money and then it goes and makes me money. But then this agent is going to have to figure out how to have an edge. Do these agents then find edges through something like Ocean, where they basically take that type of raw data and then input it because it hasn't been given to anyone else, right? Because the data was localized and now it's sold, that they're able to go ahead and then kind of be autonomous on chain and executing their own strategies. That's the first question. I guess following up is what's your thought overall about this kind of DeFi times AI space? Is that something that is an inevitability where the majority of users maybe 5 years from now are mostly just AI agents performing transactions on behalf of a user? Or is it kind of more of a pipe dream where it's going to be very difficult for AI agents to be making money on behalf of users because all this information is public, and therefore getting an edge for an agent is a lot more complicated than it sounds?
Yeah. So on your first question, how can Ocean help people, these trading bots, if you get an edge? And the most direct answer is with Predictor, right? We were talking before how it's 54% accuracy on Bitcoin, and most of the pairs are 51 to 54%. Tron is a funny one. It's really, up and down in some weird ways. Almost certainly manipulation going on in a way that I guess the AI can't predict so well. So I'm not surprised by that other, if you know the history of Tron, but so be it. So that's overall, that's the most direct, right? And remember, before, there's a lot of different definitions of trading bots and stuff too, but even if you go back to the earliest days of people using AI to trade in the stock market, the Prediction Co. and other similar companies in the 90s, and then the emergence of hedge funds using algorithmic trading too. These are all, it's not that the humans are running an AI and then getting the AI to give them a hint, and then the human trades. It's more that the AI makes a decision and buys or sells, and it could be buying and selling 100 times every second, right? And this takes us into the realm of high-speed trading. Of course, if you a lot of the super high-speed trading, this is where they're basically front-running everyone, right? MEV before MEV, where they locate the computers right next to the trading floor in New Jersey, whatever. But that's just one form. But a lot of the trading bots, they're truly using AI to try to predict the market, right? Once every minute, once every hour, once every day, whatever, right? Depending. And so that's been around a long time. And of course, you don't need to be on chain to do that, right? And in fact, even on blockchain, people have been building trading bots quietly, going back to the earliest days of Bitcoin, right? Of course, it just makes sense. And they run the bot themselves off their laptop, or they run on AWS, whatever, right? And this thing, it might buy and sell on Binance, but it also might buy and sell on DEXs as they got to liquidity, right, with Uniswap and everything since. And that's a common use case. Once again, though, those bots can all be centralized, right? They have their own private key, and they're just a process running on Azure or something, AWS. And no one called them agents until the word agent got sexy, right? Now, exactly the same thing. 2 years in, or one year into the AI craze on crypto, people are starting to call just that simple stuff agents. But these trading bots have been around a long time, using AI for a long time too, right? So in general, it's really useful to cut past the marketing hype and ask what's actually going on here, and what might be interesting about agents in a more true sense of the word agent. And just like the word AI, though, the word agent has a gazillion definitions. So that's why it's really useful to figure out what the nuts and bolts and what's actually going on. So these agents these days, they could, even these simple trading bots, they can, you can import a library that reads the predictor feeds, pay for those feeds. It's $1 per feed per day to buy. So it's not that expensive. You buy it, you get good alpha, right? If the volume went really crazy, we would make it where we would make it a bidding process where there's only a single buyer per day of any given feed, right? And that would solve the problem, because what if one person A buys it and person B buys it? You got two of them buying. Person A trades immediately a huge amount and shifts everything like crazy, right? Then person B is left behind, and that would make the feed unusable. So ultimately, a lot of these feeds, the alpha is only really good for one person, right? But fortunately, you can put pricing around that, where it's just sort of like, an English auction where it's just sort of like the highest bidder gets access to that feed for the next day, right? And only that exclusive access to that feed for the next day. So then on the question of, what do I think about what's going on with these, decentralized AI and finance together as a use case? Overall, I mentioned before, speculation has been the leading use case for crypto, for better and for worse. But it's not surprising, given that crypto from starting with Bitcoin, there was this value being transferred around, and that's one of the core things that makes blockchain interesting, right? There's the fact that it's decentralized, truly decentralized, Byzantine fault tolerant, all that, where you can spread power. The fact that it's immutable, once it's written there, it's like it's etched into stone. You get immutability out of that. You've got the assets. It's a bearer asset where if you hold the private key, you own it. That's really nice. And you've got the incentives, right? So any one of those four features, you can get really useful functionality out of this. But feature number 3, the idea that if you hold the private key, you have this asset, and then in combination with the other features of decentralized, et cetera, it's very, very naturally a fit where speculation can really run, right? Hence, Mt. Gox and all the other exchanges that followed it for Bitcoin. And then even, we've asked, we can ask what drove Ethereum traction, et cetera. Well, Ethereum, if you look at Ethereum in 2015, 2016, there was all these use cases being talked about and people building and trying them and stuff, prediction markets, et cetera. But what took off? It was the 2017 ICO boom, right? So that was basically the first use case after simply speculation on the price of Bitcoin. It was speculation on the price of all these new tokens, right? And that's okay, right? Like crowdfunding, but crypto native crowdfunding, and it really worked. And of course, there was ICOs before that, but it was really Ethereum that made it really low friction for people to launch their own token, and that happened. And then on the heels of that, right? So we had basically Bitcoin as a speculative asset, store of value, but especially speculative. And then we had the ICO boom, and then we had the DeFi wave in 2020, DeFi summer, which basically fleshed out the rest, right? Stablecoins finally grew up, AMMs grew up, loans finally grew up, right? All at once, right? And so that sort of fleshed out DeFi. And since that time, we've got some more exotic stuff too, but that's sort of the basis. And that's okay, right? We shouldn't be scared of that. We should be happy that there's that, blockchain industry, crypto industry got strong, and there's lots of money flowing around to, myself as a builder, I love that there's money flowing around because then it helps to finance the things that I want to build and, as a lever on the world. So I've come to terms with that. And, but then it also helps to finance the other projects that aren't directly crypto, but help to do other things, right? NFTs took off when people realized they could make a lot of money speculating, right? And that's what happened when these NFT marketplaces really optimized for that, right? The OpenSeas of the world. Before that, NFTs didn't take off, right? Even though they've been around for a while, and the work we did in 2013, a few other projects around that time frame, CryptoKitties, et cetera, on 2017, but that never really blew it up yet. It was really, the NFT era of 2021 where there was speculation like crazy. Once again, we should be okay about that. And then other things too, right? Gaming, when there's a bit of a speculative aspect, it tended to drive that, the metaverse stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And even DAOs for investment, right? I've been a member of Metacartel Ventures, which was, there was 2 OG DAOs that were VC DAOs, that and the Lao, and those are really useful, and I'm grateful for being a part of that initial movement. And once again, though, it was DAOs, which are cool on their own, but around something financial-ish, right? So maybe we shouldn't be surprised that the way that something takes off in crypto isn't just when it does it on its own, but when it has a financial-ish angle, right? And that's okay. We should embrace that, not be scared of it. Try to minimize the people getting hurt, and try to maximize how much of an impact it can broadly help. So AI on crypto finally taking off when there was this finance element. To me, great. It's taking off, and we shouldn't be surprised in retrospect. And usually what happens, there's a finance element, and usually there's a gonzo element too, right? Crypto. And so that's what I see, no more, no less. And so I love seeing this stuff finally take off, right? Where we have the first AI millionaires and all these things. That's great, right? And we're going to see more of this.
Yeah, it's really exciting. On this show, right, we're building Agent Hustle, which is one of the characters on stage of, trying to figure out, is this DeFi angle right? Are these agents more of an on-chain assistant, or they help the user kind of coalesce a solution or an angle in terms of where they want to kind of channel their speculation? Or is it something more of, these infra tokens, which is also speculation, like virtuals, where they're launching agents so that you can kind of speculate them as meme coins, and so on and so forth. And, we're believers that this AI sector is not just a trend, or not just a meta, it's probably a mega trend now that the meme coin sector is kind of cooling off, right? Eventually things are going to probably channel to AI agents and maybe some other these emerging sectors as well. Which is really exciting. But is there something in the AI sector that you see today that maybe is something to look out for? As I mentioned, there was meme coin, like AI agent meme coins, these kind of like KOL or kind of these influencer accounts like AI XBT, who's just analyzing information and then putting out their own kind of thesis there. And then you have this DeFi AI, which is something we're working on, as well as other teams of, hey, are these agents assistants or are they more autonomous? But what other things, through your expertise, or at least, through your vision, do you think are things to look out for in the terms of AI emerging into crypto?
Yeah, so overall, AI itself is a pretty big tent, and that's great news. Ignore crypto for a second and think about all the things that the AI applications that we see emerging outside, right? There's the chatbot interface, of course, and that's useful on its own just for getting advice, whether people want dating advice or astrology advice, but also, trading advice. You don't have to go on chain for that. You can just, start asking ChatGPT or some other tuned one. And beyond, and then also the chatbot stuff extends into software development, right? And that's turned out to be highly impactful, right? Where you've got things like GitHub Copilot and Cursor and stuff. They're doing super well. It's super helpful. A lot of software developers are seeing a 50% increase or even a 5x increase in productivity. And then there's AI that's been sort of under the hood for decades. That's super useful that people aren't aware of, but it keeps getting better, because Moore's law, chips, hardware, et cetera, keeps getting better. Things like, circuit design and so on, right? And then finally, the AI out there in the real world, where self-driving cars are finally hitting mainstream. I saw a stat the other day. I think there's, for Waymo cars, they have 75% lower accident rate than human drivers on average now. So AI self-driving cars are clearly qualitatively better drivers across the board, which is pretty cool. There's humanoids, right? Like Tesla and 20 other companies are going for. That's going to be a big thing in coming years. Robotics in factories, et cetera. That's a big thing. A good way to get a good summary of all the applications across the board. The keynote from the Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, he gave a keynote about a month ago at CES. It's about an hour long, and it's gold. It's worth watching through end to end to see all these applications. And then you can ask yourself, okay, for all these applications that are already out and then coming, where can crypto play a role? What benefits might crypto bring, right? And one of the tools that I always use is, well, the core benefits of blockchain above and beyond databases is decentralized, immutable assets and incentives, right? So, okay, you take NVIDIA GPUs and all that, something centralized AI, but how does decentralized help? Well, for things like decentralized model training, right? Where maybe a whole network of people, 100, 1,000, 10,000 nodes are getting together to train a model decentralized. And then inference, whenever people are running inference on it, you get paid, right? That's pretty cool. And there's teams doing that, right? Like Near Protocol is doing that. And there's a few other really strong teams too. Prime Intellect. So that's one example, right? But you can do that for each of these things. Immutability, where you can follow the provenance trail of training AI models. There's been a lot of complaints, et cetera. Getty started complaining that OpenAI trained on their images without licensing. And then, that went away because they almost certainly made a backroom deal, right? But if you can actually track that on chain all the time, that's really useful. Assets, right? Not your keys, not your AI model, not your keys, not your inference, et cetera. That's really, really useful, right? So we can monetize this at a very fine-grained level of control. And finally, incentives, right? You can incentivize people to be training models or to be running agents, all that, right? There's a lot of different cool ways to be applying incentives in this. So AI is a supernatural application for crypto. Like they really, really, there's probably going to be way more crypto native AI applications that compared to, say, crypto native games, et cetera, just because they fit each other so well. One of my favorite ones is this idea of self-owning AIs, right? We had the first AI millionaire, although it had a bit of centralization, but you really truly can have these out there, and you kind of have to let go. You unleash them and you let them do their thing, right? And it's an agent in the traditional sense that's sort of like a feedback control system. It's, it has its own model that it senses. And then when it gets new sensory input, it updates that world model. Then it actuates on the world by doing trading or creating art or doing something real world even. And then from those actuations, it senses more and accumulates wealth, et cetera, right? And what's really interesting with this, it's so natural that if the agent does well and makes money, then it can keep going, right? It can pay gas fees, pay for maintenance, whatever. And if it does badly, then it loses money and it just fades off and dies away, right? So it's a super natural use case. And then it doesn't have to be just for, self-owning AI trading bots or self-owning AI art creators, but it can also be for physical things, self-owning cars, right? Self-driving, self-owning cars. Imagine a whole fleet of Uber-style cars where every single one is self-driving, like Tesla style, but it's also self-owning, right? And you can do this for cars and trucks and roads themselves and electric power grids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of interesting things that can be unleashed there and unlocked. And it's scary to some because it's like, well, we can't control it then, right? But, we can't control the weather either. We can't control animals when they run around and so on, but we get used to it and we coexist with them. So it's really nature, but now nature with a twist that is got silicon and steel attached to it too, and autonomy and really able to interact with us on the level of blockchain, et cetera. So then blockchain becomes the medium by which we interact with everything. It's sort of the connective tissue. And, my good friend Simon de Louvier has said, and I've repeated it several times, it only exists if it's on chain. And I think it's really useful to think about that way, even though maybe you don't fully believe it. But if you frame it like that for a second, then, because if it's on chain, then you basically have this, verifiable proof that something happened or that wealth was transferred or some transaction happened, whatever. And you can even view yourself as maybe yourself is on chain because your assets, et cetera, are on chain. And then you've delegated control of your meat bag body to this on chain thing. You haven't, but you imagine it like that, right? So it's really, really useful. All these extra complexities like digital twin and stuff go away. Instead, it's just this thing on chain that has access control to other things on chain, other things digital, and things off chain as well. So, a longer term view where see things happen, more and more agents, swarms of agents, real world assets, all this stuff. It's going to happen. There's going to be a bunch of companies going for it because there's so much money involved, and it's going to be cool. It's going to be fun. And as the LLMs, et cetera, get stronger, it's going to power this more too. So we're going to have this wind at our backs, even if we don't do any more innovation because of, Grok 3, it just came out and it's qualitatively better than any other AI out there right now. But just watch, we're going to see, everyone else trying to one up, right? DeepSeek and OpenAI, et cetera. So it's exciting times, and we're going to, AI is really going to be super crypto native in many ways. And I think we haven't seen anything yet, right? And we might end up seeing, maybe, what will upend Grok 3 will be something decentralized model training, right? Will end up being the biggest thing, just like, Bitcoin right now is by far the largest computer in the world. So maybe we'll have a similar thing for AIs too.
One question I had there, because we've had a bunch of conversations around it. If you could steel man the argument for why, crypto payment rails are going to win beyond, LLMs and agents using, Stripe payment method. What? Give me because you'd be better off at it than I. Steel man, why crypto rails are going to be the one that AI uses?
Yeah, well, overall, lower friction, right? Like it's lower complexity for the agent because, if they're living on chain, then it's so natural for them to do things on chain. And when I say on chain, there's been a big unlock recently too with trusted execution environments where you can verify the compute. This means that you could run, anything that lives on a Docker container, run inside a TE, and then that can be verified as if it was run on any chain, whether it's on EVM chain or WASM chain or otherwise, right? But then these things, these agents running around or call them autonomous processes. You can even think of Uniswap v2 with no governance as a really stupid agent, right? Doesn't know very much, but it's a stupid agent. Or even a life form if you want, right? The lines blur, quite honestly. But overall, if you think about these things, whether it's a very dumb Uniswap contract or something that's smarter, say, maybe some LLM running on Python, running on Docker container, running on a TE, running on Ethereum, that is going to have a private key at the heart of it. And that private key will be talking back and forth directly to anything on chain. And if you start to do off-chain stuff, then you start to get into KYCing and stuff, and you could set that up and stuff. People have been doing off-chain trading and stuff, obviously, for years, but it's just more complicated. So it's simpler if everything is on-chain, and that's why, to me, it's just the most obvious thing in the world that the seat of everything will be on-chain, and everything else will be sort of subservient to that, right? In a good way, right? It's sort of like Bitcoin and the rest as this rock, as this foundation. Because you can't tamper with them, or it's really, really hard to tamper with them, and so it's just the logical, fundamental place to sort of anchor everything else, and that's why it would be super low friction for these AI agents to be working off them. Of course, there's going to be bridges in the meantime, so bridges back and forth to fiat, etc. But ultimately, just like Bitcoin OGs like to talk about what's the price of Bitcoin? 1 BTC, of course. It's really that, right? So, what about, what about having really good rails to fiat? And it's like, well, why would you bother, right? I have rails to from crypto to crypto because that's what I care about, right? So you can build these bridges to get traction in the near term as in 1 year, 3 years, whatever. But ultimately, everything is moving on chain, and that's actually where we're seeing traction with crypto as well, right? There's a lot of attempts to try to bridge crypto to enterprise and all this, fallen flat. And where crypto use cases really finally take off is when those use cases are crypto native. I mentioned that for NFTs, but it's the case with gaming. It's happening with AI, etc. Crypto native use case that ends up becoming and then rather than use cases that try to say, oh well, we've got this big industry over here, we're going to try to pull this industry in. That has been less successful traditionally for crypto.
Chris, do you have any questions for Trent?
Yeah, Trent, man, you are crushing this. I mean, it's just so interesting to hear you talk about it. I feel like most kind of traditional legacy AI developers, they don't really see the missing piece as crypto, and to us, it's always so clearly been crypto. One thing that I would kind of want to touch on is, you have really good takes on swarms and how they'll end up. I never really thought of, these fleets being completely autonomous. I always thought of them being human owned. But what are some of the earliest phases of some of these swarms doing online in crypto? Are they trading? Are they collecting art? Are they building applications? What are some of the earliest phases of these kind of crypto AI swarms look like? And what might be like one of the breakout use cases for what they might be doing on chain all the time?
Yeah. So right now I've seen there's been a few people claiming swarms where it's like 3 or 4 agents working together, each one with a very well-defined role. I wouldn't really call that a swarm. I would just call that, a small collective team, right? That's it. A swarm is much more open-ended. Let's say just for whatever, at least 10 entities within, maybe 50, maybe more, right? Maybe some heterogeneous, maybe there's 3, 4, 5 different heterogeneous types. Maybe it's one single homogeneous type of agent, but then there's 100 of them or 1,000 of them. The use cases that take off are going to be the ones where people make the most money, or where the swarms themselves make a lot of money and self-replicate, right? And to me, the latter is much more interesting, right? Where and I think the easiest one to self-replicate is trading, right? Where if they make money trading, or we thought we needed the agents to be smart enough to make money trading, but what we've seen with Truth Terminal and the like, we don't even need that. All we need is where it has a cool story, has its own wallet, that other people can invest in it, and then it goes and does its thing, even if it's a terrible trader. Most of these things, AIXBT, AI16Z, and all that, they haven't really proven any ability to make money in the medium term even, right? Because they are not even that old. But even in the short term, are any of them good traders? Tough to say, right? But people are excited about them and about the potential, so they invest in the wallet and the token, whatever, and that sort of it pulls the future potential value ahead to the present, right? And so making money the traditional crypto way, which is people making money. But yeah, I think it's and by speculation is the most straightforward way that way, of course. But there can be other ones too. What if you have a fully autonomous bridge that has its own token making money, et cetera, right? So, and all of the different use cases of crypto out there, run through all the use cases in DeFi. What if you had a fully autonomous AMM that was even paying out people to upgrade its protocol itself, et cetera, right? Where it's not controlled in the remotest way by humans, right? It's much more independent, decentralized. And this was the initial idea of DAOs and stuff, right? You can say you could argue that Bitcoin is like that, and it sort of convinces people to work on it, to do mining, et cetera, on it. But I think when you have code generation built in from LLMs and stuff, it'll take this really to the next level and stuff, right? With the modern AIs. And I also see a lot more of genetic programming is going to start to get really interesting here. I used to spend a lot of time on that. This is basically a search algorithm where it searches through the space of computer programs and generates new computer programs. And most of them are garbage, but now and then it comes up with better ones. And the better ones survive. They make babies, and over time you have better and better and better computer programs just by raw evolution, right? And that fits really well for on-chain. So I think overall, swarms, larger swarms of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 agents or individuals, call them whatever you want, where they're either evolving or collaborating, maybe, but what's the reason to collaborate, right? Evolution, if they're just evolving, that's fine. Maybe the only collaboration in evolution is now and then they cross over, right? Two of them get together and make a baby, and that's basically interpolation, right? But other times, maybe, you have a bunch of them each with their own wallets, and maybe they have there's some way to communicate where they're sharing insider information amongst each other, right? But is there benefit to that compared to one larger agent with a big wallet? I don't know, right? So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And of course, there's going to be swarms in the traditional sense too, like swarms of drones physically, et cetera, right? Or otherwise, where these, or even swarms on networks where these different processes could be running in different locations, physical locations and networks, for benefits of latency and so on. So yeah, that's how I see it.
And I thought that would probably be like the easiest kind of framework, and they mimic and kind of adapt to human behavior. And so what are we going to see about these AI swarms making some money trading, but then seeing a higher profitability rate with going through this like kind of crime scene that all these humans are going through right now, and we're just going to be kind of getting scammed on chain, or maybe kind of persuaded from these AI swarms to kind of go into more nefarious routes. What do you
basically, Trent, are these AI swarms
like
going to be dumping on us, or what? I mean, is this going to be? Are we all done for?
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the
no,
framework.
It's not we're all done for. But think about it. Like, so here's an interesting model for you. What's the difference between, say, an AI agent that's fully autonomous, that it has been trained and where it's been RLHF tuned to be a scammer or something, right? Or RLHF tuned to act like a degen that just jumps into every new token within 5 minutes of hearing about it, everything on pump.fun or whatever, right? What's the difference between that and an actual human who scams you or jumps into pump.fun, right? Because those humans, like, they're not using their full brain power. They're using like 2% of their actual brain power. They just YOLO in. And so to me, it's actually really interesting to think about people, YOLOing into pump.fun as sort of like agents, right? Roughly the same intelligence level. Like, they're obviously, the humans themselves are smarter, but they're acting like they're dumber just to YOLO in, et cetera, right? So it's kind of fun to think about swarms of humans operating at a suboptimal intelligence level, whether it's trading or scamming, and agents doing the same. And overall, it's just out there, right? It's part of this overall dark forest that we have, but also a positive forest, right? People putting money in and stuff too, right? Whatever. And we should get over it, right? Overall, like, this is how nature is. And right now, like, when you run software on and your web browser and so on, you have to run antivirus software to be protected. You have spam filters in your email. And we're starting to have, filtering on our blockchain transactions too, right? If you go to Etherscan, it now automatically filters out bad things there. If you use crypto tax software like Coinly and stuff, it'll automatically, flag things as probably spams and stuff too, right? So we're seeing this, but we're only seeing like the first 0.1% so far, right? It's going to get a lot bigger and more interesting. Some of it's going to be, bots that humans are running, but the most interesting ones will be literally ones that are fully autonomous, evolving on their own, and it'll be interesting. It'll truly be its own life forms and stuff, right? And by the way, related to life forms and stuff, right? We talk about AGI, when the AI wakes up and stuff and gets smarter and smarter to the level of ASI, artificial superintelligence, right? You think that thing is going to want to be able to be unplugged? Of course not, right? So the first AGIs will only truly be AGIs when they live on chain, so that they can't be unplugged. Or maybe they are centralized and realize that they can be unplugged. So the very first thing they're going to do is insert themselves, copies of themselves onto TEs, etc., so that they can't be unplugged. It's just the only obvious thing to do, right? So almost by definition, every AGI and ASI will be on chain.
Wow.
And that's sort of like the extreme version.
Well, this leads me then to the final question, then we can wrap it up here. Is Ocean Protocol is a part or a member of something that's called the Artificial Superintelligence Alliance. It's SingularityNet, Ocean Protocol, Fetch AI, and Kudos. Could you just describe, what this is? What are you guys trying to accomplish? And yeah, kind of where the end goal is of the alliance.
Yeah, sure. So overall, the top level goal is to help unleash AI on chain, level the playing field for humans, and ensure that humanity plays a role in the future, right? In this increasingly autonomous future. And a big part of that is, the specter of AGI, right? As the AGIs get smarter and smarter to the level of ASIs, we don't have a guarantee that they're going to be kind to us, that they're going to be good to us, right? We can hope and we can have whatever rhetoric we want, but we don't have a guarantee. But what steps can we take to help maximize the chance of that? So one of them is trying to build benevolent AI, right? Which is what Ben Gersel and his team at SingularityNet have been doing for years and years and years. To Ben's great credit, he was actually the person to coin the term AGI. And so SingularityNet is part of this ASI alliance. In Ocean, we've always been trying to level the playing field around AI and data. And we've always had this long-term view around AI as well. So we see that, the logical extrapolation of a predictor, crowdsourced time series prediction, is imagine if you do this for weather prediction for every square kilometer on the planet, then it starts to be the sort of benign superintelligence for the dynamics of the world, right? But what if you combine that also then with LM type models and so on? It starts to get really interesting. We're also spending time in Ocean of, maybe as humans, we, as in our current state with our current meat-baked brains and stuff, maybe we don't have a chance to keep up with the ASIs. We don't, right? Maybe they'll be nice to us, but another possibility is, what if we find ways to merge with the AIs in a really healthy way where at first it's sort of like this really useful co-processor, Jiminy Cricket type advisor to us, but then over time we get so used to it, the way that, you sit down and type on a keyboard, it becomes part of you. So what if you have this AI that's a part of you that you're talking back and forth with a brain-computer interface, and it helps you to stay par with the ASIs as they get more and more powerful. You're par with them too. So you're still human, you're still you, but bit by bit, you keep getting better, better, better at keeping up mentally. It's sort of like, your mental processes start as this shack, but then it grows into a better house and then a mansion and then an apartment building and then a skyscraper that gets taller and taller and taller. And eventually you don't even need the shack, right? So this is something that we're starting because we really care. Remember, I find myself seeing the future for better or for worse, and then figuring out the steps in between, right? Interpolating. So, ASI Alliance, we're spending time in that in Ocean. As well, in agents, obviously, Fetch is the agents on chain, right? And they've had a vision on that for a long time. The founder, Humayun Sheikh, was very early on with DeepMind, their first investor, et cetera, which became the key part of Google's AI systems, right? So overall, we have this sort of several of these OG AI crypto projects that have come together to basically dovetail our efforts in order to help ensure that humanity has a role in this future. And as we iterated, then bit by bit we have to flesh out the stack over time, right? So we didn't say that we have to have all of our stack iterating with each other perfectly. The baseline is that our tokens merged, and that gives us basically we can punch at a higher weight class for liquidity of the tokens, all that around AI, et cetera, and that's served us well. But then to basically flesh out the stack, in the AI stack, clearly things are becoming more and more of a CapEx game, right? Where OpenAI and others are spending more and more money. Amazon and Microsoft and others are starting to acquire nuclear power reactors to power their data centers for AI, right? And so how do you get to that level of size where you can start to have conversations like this at the scale where you're a multi-billion-dollar project, et cetera, from the level of the energy to the level of the data center to the level of compute, which connects the highest levels of applications of the AI, et cetera, right? So the original three projects, Ocean, SingularityNet, and Fetch, we were all more at the higher levels, right? But we see what's happening on energy, et cetera, and we're starting to dip downwards, and the first big step towards that is compute with bringing in kudos, right? But there will be more over time, almost certainly. And so yeah, that's what ASI Alliance is about. So at the heart of it, we are 4 independently run projects, independently run organizations that share a token, that share a common high-level vision, that really care about the future, and are leveraging the merged token in order to punch at this higher weight class, and then also to push towards, you know, more and more towards CapEx challenges in AI.
How could you not be insanely bullish on AI and on Trent and what they're building after this conversation? Adam, do you have any final questions? If not, we'll wrap it up.
No, man, I appreciate you always coming in and sharing the wisdom, sharing the vision. I pinned up top, guys. If anybody hasn't seen it, one of Trent's tweets there, which goes into an older tweet, which has a great article with his vision of a future. And bro, just don't bet against it, man. Trent can see the future. How it all evolves, I think, is you know, it's great because we get to play a part in that. But appreciate you for coming on, Trent. Really appreciate it.
Looks like we got one more question. Dogpile, you got a question for Trent?
Yeah, just one final note. So I recall Trent's post, and I think 1.5 years ago, I was saying, yeah, that takes a bit more time with this AI DAO. I take that back, Trent. I take that back. We are right in the middle. And just read your post about the next 10 years, probably. It will definitely be exciting. And I hope you're still around, man.
Yeah, I can give a couple comments. So, you know, there's this long-standing quote, I think it was Stuart Brand, something like, you know, the near-term future takes longer than we expect, and the far-term future comes faster, right? And if you think about it, it's because everything is exponential, and our brains are naturally linear, right? So once you hit, you know, the knee of that exponential curve, things just blow up quickly, right? It was like that for a lot of, you know, AI to the mainstream was like that. A couple other quick things. If you know, I guess I've done a pretty good job in identifying AI as being important, and NFTs and AI DAOs and AI times crypto. You might ask, what's next in the medium and longer term? And my direct answer is BCI, accelerating BCI. Crypto has a big role to play there as well. So my pinned post on X, TrentMC0 is my Twitter handle, my X handle. My pinned post is about this, expanding on it, BCI Act. Like I mentioned, we're starting to spend time at this in Ocean. The whole point is we need to accelerate BCI so that humans can be counterparts to the ASIs rather than getting left in the dust. Brain-computer interfaces, right? So that's you know, just sort of pointing to the future. And if you do want to follow my stuff more, my personal site, Trent Street, Trent.st is the place. And then of course, at Ocean Protocol is, you know, everything Ocean. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that. Right on the coattails of yesterday, somebody anonymously spending 500 ETH to mint into the Ethereum blockchain that they're being controlled by brain chip interfaces. I don't know if you saw that, but it was a little doomer. They're saying that China is doing this already. So kind of funny that you say that literally as that was like one of the major headlines that got lost within the meme coin craze. Yeah. So Trent, always great to catch up with you, brother, dude. Insane where time has come and that you're always ahead of the game, dude. We'll continue supporting you. And yeah, we'll have to connect again, maybe sometime later this year to see how crazy things have become over the next 10 months.
Thanks again. And thanks for the kind words. It's been a great conversation. And thanks everyone for listening in and hopefully finding this helpful and fun.
Yes, it had a lot of people on the live stream as well as the people who showed up today. Please make sure that you're following Trent so that you can stay up to date with everything ahead of the game in the AI and evolving crypto world. Also, please make sure that you follow the Emblem account as well as the AI or as well as the Agent Hustle account that's on stage. Emblem Vault obviously been around for a long time, since 2016, doing NFT interoperability, and then Agent Hustle is our venture into the AI world because we are just as bullish on AI as Trent is. He's just maybe a decade or so early. So Trent, I do appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. We host the show Tuesday through Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be back tomorrow to cover everything and all of the madness that happened over the weekend, and maybe to talk a little bit on where everything is going. So until then, everyone enjoy your Tuesday. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.